I'm working with several agents right now that are going through a difficult transition, and that is they're going from being a doer of things to a director of things. And typically the profile of this agent looks like this. Maybe they're doing about 20, 24 transactions per year, and they just don't have enough time in the day to deal with all their transactions and still maintain all of the other relationships that they need to maintain, get their marketing material out and all these other things. So what they started thinking about is, man, I really wish I had an assistant to hand some of this work off. And they deal with it in different ways. And so you might bring in a buyer's agent, you might hire just a full-on virtual assistant, and maybe that doesn't go as well as you thought it was going to go. Here's why. Because you're not a doer in this role, you're a director in this role. So what I'd like to do is take a little bit of time and let's look at and dissect some great recommendations for you to be able to start following to set yourself up for that next step of expansion, which means I'm over 25 transactions, maybe I get to 50. It's really important that at this point in your career, you address this, and how you address this is going to determine what happens next. Are you going to have enough command and control in place and structure to start your own brokerage? Or do you just want to keep growing your team? If you keep growing your team, is it your plan to still do transactions? Maybe it is, and maybe it isn't. Sometimes when you get into that hybrid of I'm still doing transactions, but I'm also a team leader, there can be a lot of tension, and it can also really suck up your time. So let's get started. So the first thing you need to do, and I don't want to sound too corporate here, but you have to establish some policies and procedures and some standard operating procedures. Now, you don't need to go to, Disney Academy to figure this out. It's really simple. For you as a realtor, mortgage lender, or whatever business you're operating, it's about having checklists. You start with a checklist. And you can be incredibly successful and you can get a lot of transactions done. And a lot of the things that you're doing, you might be doing it in a very automated kind of way. You're not really thinking, okay, well, if I took a listing, here's the first thing I do, and then I'm just off to the races. The odds are, if you don't have a checklist, you've never taken some conscious thought to just write it down. There's probably about 15 things that you're doing in your day that can actually be serialized. And what this means is you need to write it down and start breaking apart the steps. Now, is this going to take some effort? Is it going to take some time? It is. It means that when you're in this growth process and learning how to do this, you might have to dial back a little bit on your production. You're going to have to allocate time. Growing your business and growing a team or starting a brokerage really isn't just about hiring people and training them. It's about you having to retool your thoughts and your processes. And that starts with analyzing, what are you really doing on a daily basis? The first thing you have to do is kind of think about, how would I replace myself if I wasn't here and I had to tell somebody else to do something for me? How am I going to communicate that in a way that's not emotional, that's very clear, and has got some performance guarantees and standards around it? Number one thing, first things first, start making simple checklists of the things that you know that you need to do in order to be successful in your business. What are the steps around a listing presentation? What are the steps around when you do get a buyer's lead? What are the performance expectations around a buyer's lead? When you first talk to a buyer, what does your interrogation or your questioning process look like? What does your buyer interview process look like? I need you to write it down. Now, like I said, this is going to eventually become a policies and procedures manual at some point. That's the terminal goal, because it ends up becoming your, the roadmap for your brokerage. But long before we get there, we need to identify what are the things that you're doing that you're successful in that we can serialize. Write it down. Start making checklists. Do me a huge favor. Don't hire an assistant. Don't bring a buyer's agent in. Don't do anything until you can start identifying these checklists. I have a list of those 15 items. I'm happy to share it with you. But when it comes to filling in those action items, it's totally on your own shoulders to do that. Why? Because it's the process of you doing that that's going to create the growth necessary when it comes to being able to delegate tasks to somebody else. Okay, the next thing you need to do is a little bit of soul searching, and that's this. Are you a control freak? I know a lot of people in real estate who are got some control issues because they just don't want to give up and let someone else do it. So there's a lot of reasons why we have control issues, and we're not going to talk about your childhood, but here's the deal. You have to be able to rely on somebody else to help you if in fact you want help. If you're unable or unwilling to let go of certain things, you need to identify that long before you get into an argument with an assistant that you hire because they do everything wrong or they don't know what they're doing. Of course they don't. My question is, whose fault is it? It's your fault. It's not their fault. Here's how you kind of break out of that. You break out of that by, you made all these to-do lists and all these action item lists and all these standard operating procedures. I don't want you to turn the whole thing over in 20 minutes. What I want you to do is identify like one or two things that are just, that you just don't want to do them any longer. And so it's not going to take a big amount of convincing when you look at it. And so maybe you have a simple checklist procedure around the anniversary of transaction date. So you've been in the business for quite a while. You have a bunch of transactions in your past. My question is, are you sending a CMA out to everybody that you've ever done a transaction with on the anniversary of their transaction? Good question. Most agents that I know are not doing that, and they should, because you're relying heavily on repeat and referral business when you get this deep into your business. Guess what? You can write this down and you can have somebody else do it for you. Send out a simple CMA. Guess what? They can use your MLS access, and it's a non-licensed assistant, which I prefer, quite honestly, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But don't give everything up immediately. Just give a little bit at a time, and then you'll start seeing, okay, this makes sense. Now, the question is, who am I giving this up to, right? So if this person is not a real estate agent and they're not a buyer's agent and they're not part of your team, who the heck are they? So I need you to find somebody, and all they have to have is a highly flexible schedule. They may have been in the business at one time, but now they're retired. Or maybe they're a new person just kind of getting started in some type of career, and it's not necessarily real estate. I would go to your local community college. There's always opportunities to find job postings there. And what you're looking for is protege. You're looking for a protege, someone that you want to teach business to, not necessarily the real estate business. This is someone that you can pay maybe X number of dollars per hour to do a specific task, and you're hiring them just like the gig economy, just like you'd hire somebody on Fiverr to do a logo for you. You're going to hire someone to say, hey, what I need you to do is, here's a list of all my past transactions with the addresses. I'm going to give them the checklist of how to actually create a CMA. And I'm going to have them create the CMA and drop it into an email, and you're going to CC me on it. Simple, right? Yeah, totally simple. Here's the thing. Before you start trying to delegate activities to someone, number one, you have to have structure. That's what the checklists are all about, the standard operating procedures. But number two, you have to have a willingness to let that thing go. And what's going to help you let that thing go is that you do have a process and a procedure, and you can explain it to somebody in a logical sequence of events that they're going to be able to do it. Why? Because if they can't do it, boom, you're out of here. Go find someone else, $20 an hour to do the simple task. This is going to help you learn something really quickly, and that is, I want you to hire people slowly, and I want you to fire them fast. If they're not sticking to what they need to do, which is the activities, get rid of them quickly. Find someone new, get rid of them quickly. You're a leader, you're not a doer any longer, and that means you're going to have someone else do these things. And I want you to get into this habit of, hey, people are going to come into your world, they're going to leave your world. They're going to come into your world, they're going to leave your world. Don't think you're going to find an assistant, an entry-level person that's going to ride off into the sunset with you. It's just not going to happen. What you need to do is system and process and be prepared for that churn. It's activities-based management. You want to give them a specific activity to achieve within a specific time frame. At the beginning of the week, you can audit that, review it at the end of the week. Did it get done? Great. Here's your $20, right? This is going to condition you to be in the mind space where you need to be as you advance as a leader. Okay, the third and final thing at this level, I want you to start establishing some regular meetings. Now, I don't want you to get some big corporate hierarchy and you have meetings just to meet. That's really not what I'm looking for. What I want you to do is to have some kind of a regular sales meeting, And it doesn't have to be every week. I think it's okay if that's once a month. And during the sales meeting, it's important that you're coaching and you're presenting information or best practices at this meeting, or you're setting an expectation of, hey, here's how we do things here. Here's why you're in my team. You're in my team because when it comes to listing presentation, here's what we'd like to do every single time. Now, you're going to have some people who don't want to show up to your meetings. Great. They're independent contractors. You can't make them do it. But I'll tell you, if you're trying to create a culture, how are you going to do it without having some accountability around someone showing up to your meeting? Well, I just can't make it this week because I'm busy, blah, blah, blah. Maybe yes and maybe no. For me, this might be grounds for termination. If they don't see the value in coming to my meeting, then they don't see the value in being on my team, and they're busy running their own business and their own team, and that's fine. There's just probably not a place for them with me. Now, in addition to that once a month thing, which doesn't seem like it's any big deal, you can kind of make it fun. You could do like a first Monday of the month breakfast where you put a couple of dollars on the table and you go buy people breakfast. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. It's before the business day really starts. If people can't make that, then they're just not committed to you. You need to reassess who you're hiring. All right. One-on-ones. So I'm a big fan of agile mindset thinking, which is these little ceremonies of what are you focused on today? What are you focused on this week? What do you need to get done by the end of the month? And so as a team leader, I kind of want you to think about positioning yourself just the way I position myself with my clients. I'm a coach. At the end of the day, my clients, I want them to double their business. Well, if you're a team leader, what do you want? You want the people on your team to double their business, right? How do you achieve that? Well, you're going to give them little touch points and you're going to touch them periodically, and you're going to do a little daily stand-up ceremony. And so maybe it's every single day for some of your team members where literally every morning you get on the phone for 5 minutes. What are you focused on today? Where's your attention span? Now, as a leader, this is a huge commitment, but I will tell you, the more you participate in this type of thinking, you're going to be amazed where they know that you're going to talk to them every morning and they're going to have to say what they're doing, right? Confess your sins. And what does it do? It kind of sets up this expectation. Are you micromanaging them? No, because it's really a coaching call. It's like, hey, what are you focused on today to help, get your business done? Oh, and by the way, have you added any new prospects this week? It's Thursday. Do you plan to add any prospects between now and Sunday, right? A little bit of gentle reminder. If you're not establishing some kind of a flow in meetings, then you're really not a team because you're not even approaching any kind of team cohesion. You can make sales meetings interesting and you can make them not a burden. I've got 400 or 500 great ideas for a sales meeting. I'm more than happy to share them with you and kind of get you started. At the end of the day, you're really just trying to inspire people to better behavior and to better activity and to more accountability. Please hit that subscribe button and don't forget, visit our website and schedule your free 30-minute evaluation.